Veteran's Voice, stories that deserve to be heard, is proudly sponsored by Calling Gilbert Wright and Carter.
I'm Colonel Paula Edwards, retired, U.S. Army, and this is my story. When I was a child, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. There were 5 girls and 1 boy, but I was way down at the bottom. My oldest siblings were like 9, 10, 11 years older, so big spaces. And I enjoyed doing Girl Scouts, did that from 1st grade to 12th grade. I liked all kind of sports, but I also liked things like modeling. And if anybody would ask you, would I be in the military, the answer was no. When you're in high school and you have things most likely, like this person's most likely to be successful, whatever, if they said the most likely person to be in the military, that would not be me. But I had a friend in high school, and we decided, we're both very patriotic, but we decided, hey, let's go join the military. So, you know, we listened to the recruiter, and she never did it. She never actually went. She just talked about it. But I said, no, I really want to go and do this. So I took the ASVAB, I took the physical, I rode around with the recruiter, but my birthday is not until October, so I was not 18 and could not sign for myself. And my parents had the recruiter to come at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday just to tell him, no, we think she'd rather be an officer. I didn't know the difference really from, you only see on TV like privates and sergeants. I didn't know anything about being an officer, but my parents felt if I was going to do this, that I should get into the military and be an officer, because that was more of my background. But I had no idea if I would really like it. So they said, well, you can try it out in ROTC. And that's where I really fell in love with the military. I'm not from a military family. My father did serve in the Korean War, but you know, he was drafted to do that in the minimal amount of time, and then he was ready to move on. He served honorably, but he was like, this is not what was expected of anyone. And he was a very successful doctor. My mom was a teacher, and he didn't feel that any of his children needed to go to the military for an education or for a job, because he could provide that. And so I told him, I said, well, I'm not going for the education benefits or travel, because I had traveled a lot as a young child. I said, I'm going because I want to serve my country. I think this is something that I can do. But remember, I was the person who would be least likely thought to be in the military. The only thing really athletic I did well was swim and run long distance, which works out very well for the military. And I was a born leader. I was always in leadership type organizations and events, from being a class officer in high school to being on student government in college. It was just a natural thing to do. So I joined ROTC. I kind of had the Private Benjamin moment, because I wanted to carry, you know, like Louis Vuitton bags to the field, all sorts of crazy things, or paint my fingernails in a camouflage pattern, which, you know, it doesn't make any sense. But it was fun. It was who I am. And I never really changed who I was, and just continued to grow. And, you know, basic training. I saw it as a mental game. If you could just stay tough, you'd make it through that. A lot of push-ups, but I did gymnastics also, and cheerleading. And so you get a lot of upper body strength, and I could do a lot of push-ups. I always had something to talk about, so I ended up doing a lot of push-ups, and I could do a lot of pull-ups, and I did a lot of that over and over and over again. But when I tell people basic training was one of my funnest summers I ever had, they're like, you must be crazy, because they were very tough on you, or they looked at the way I looked and said, you know, this isn't Miss America pageant or anything. But I could do all the physical requirements, but it was a huge a huge change. I just knew what I wanted to do in the end, and to be an officer and to serve. So all the other things that would have normally held me back, I could press forward and continue to do that. And I got to be a public affairs officer, which was what I really always wanted to do. So even when I was in basic training, they used to have the little disc camera back in the day, and I had that in one of my little pouches, and on a road march or something, I'd whip it out and, take a click here, take a click there, and they were always like, you can't have a camera out putting it out like that. But I got to go with the public affairs officer and got to be the narrator for the graduation, and I got to go around and see a lot of public affairs events, and I didn't really know what type of officer I wanted to be, but I'm like, wow, when I got exposed to that, I said, how great. But going through training, I always would have the mindset that I wanted to be a infantry officer or special forces, because going through ROTC, you have to know tactics very well. That's how you're set apart. You need to be physically disciplined and do well there, and then do the tactics. And so I said, I have to become that. If I'm going to do well, I've got to know tactics. So I studied it real hard, and I learned it. And like I said, I was the least likely military person, but I had a goal and I was focused. And so I did that real well. At that time, you couldn't be an infantry officer or special forces, but I knew the training was important. And so that background training all the way from ROTC helped me as I progressed through the military. And, although I did do combat tours as well, I wasn't out on the ground doing every maneuver, going place to place. I had my times there. I got an early commission as well, and I was just 20 years old. Like I said, once I got in it, I was focused, and I just excelled, and I was a distinguished military student and a distinguished military graduate. Because one, I had to really prove to my father I could do this. I was tough enough to do this, because no one even thought I'd make it through basic training. So I was always trying to prove that I could do this. I could do just as well as any man out there who was going through this program. So I just, always continued through it and did my best. I had a lot of good experiences and some not so great experiences as I went through, but every experience helped to build character. I got to be a part of, from the first one, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. At the time, for my career, I was on active duty, I was in the reserves, and then I was also called back to active duty after 9/11. And I served for 32 years, but 14 of the years were active duty years. So I had times when I was in the reserves and got to see the military from all different points of views, and the support that you get. When I was deployed to for the Bosnia conflict, the support was really different, because that was prior to 9/11, whereas my family supported me. My civilian career was different, because you had to take COLA if that's what you needed, or whatever. The support just wasn't there. The Army Reserves has a program for the employer support of the Guard and Reserve, and that was one thing I remember from that very first deployment, that I wanted to recognize the other teachers, because teachers don't always get the best rap and something good. And we don't always get a lot of time notice of when you're going to be deployed. I kind of knew it was coming in the fall of that year, So that summer, I told the principal, you know, you're going to have to buy a different curriculum, because I was kind of the crazy teacher who would write their own curriculum and get it approved and to meet all the students' needs. And I said, but another teacher is going to need a regular textbook to help them, you know, to make it a little easier for them to do the planning and all of that. So the principal ended up, I only had 5 days notice till I was gone, and this was essentially maybe like the second week of school. So right at the beginning of the school year, the principal comes in and she takes my class till she can find a full-time substitute. I had just received like a $25,000 grant. If another teacher didn't take it, then the kids would be at a miss. And I was over student council and lots of other things. All these teachers, they came in and they did that for me, and so that the students and kids benefited. That was a 9-month deployment, so I got back right at the end of the school year, and you know, life was great. Then it was September. That I had put my entire staff in the Chicago Public Schools, of which, you know, they have like almost 500,000 students and 50,000 teachers or something like that. And I put them in for that award, and I knew I had written a good letter, but I didn't think it was that good that I could win the top award for the state. So my school was recognized, and that was on September 10th of 2001. And we had gone down to our state capitol for the recognition, and the principal and myself. And then when they came back that Wednesday, we always had a staff meeting. And so we had the television stations coming out. The CEO for Chicago Public Schools was going to be there. And that was normally our Wednesday morning meeting. But then on Tuesday for 9/11, that horrific event took place. And you know, they wanted to know, well, are you going to have to leave or whatever? And I'm like, no, you don't just leave. You have to wait for the call up. But eventually I was, and I went in support of that afterwards. But the next day, on the 12th, all those people were there, but really they were coming because we were recognizing what others did to support the military at that time. And such a shift and such a change in the country after that time was just amazing. And that was one thing I'll never forget. But in my family, not everyone understands the military and all that we go through. Not even in a family, especially being a female, a mother. I was a dual parent household for the military, so we had 4 kids, and it would be hard. I mean, but their entire life, they were all born after I was in the military, so they were used to having to go to other people's houses and other family members. And recently, my 25-year-old son, he passed away on Memorial Day of 2017. And a sister said, well, you know, it was really hard, and maybe you couldn't be there. You just really weren't there for your kids. And I'm like, thinking, how could you say I'm not there when I was there most of the time? And I said, men are never questioned the way women are questioned of, well, when you had the chance to get out, why didn't you get out? It was the same when that same son was born in 91 with Desert Storm, Desert Shield. And it was really difficult because I was a company commander. I was in a reserve unit, and we were activated. And I was, at the time, about somewhere between 7 and 8 months pregnant. And my family was saying, you should get out because you can't, you know, prior to that, the military, they weren't going anywhere, especially if you were in the reserves, no one was going to call and tell you had to go. And I said at that time, how could I have taken that scholarship? How could I have taken all that training? And the one time they called and asked me to do something, I go away. Or what do I tell my soldiers who maybe in that same situation. Don't go now that you're being called and asked to do something. That's that was the wrong answer. And my ex-husband at that time, he thought too, yeah, well, maybe you should get out. And I was like, but you're home with them. Why can't you be there? Or why don't you get out and you stay home? Well, he's like, well, I'm the man. And I'm like, okay, that's not a reason. And I had that same sort of thing from the other people in my immediate family, my siblings, thinking, you're being selfish because you want to serve. This is just about you. And I said, it's more than just about me. I made a commitment. I made that commitment that I was going to be there. I have soldiers who are looking to me who are going to take my lead. If I do it, then there goes, and then where's all our discipline? It's gone. It's all for naught. And I couldn't live with myself to do that. But I knew by the time my son would be 2 months, that was going to be like, maybe he was born in September, by December, but definitely by January, I'd have to go and catch up with my unit. And I was prepared. I was prepared to do that. Well, we all know what happened with Desert Storm. It ended quickly, so our alert went away, and I didn't have to do that. But I knew I was ready, and I could stand the test of time and to get everything ready that I needed to support my kids. And so on other deployments, as time went on, and I did other things, it was easier because there was more support for soldiers and families, for child care, for health care, getting the TRICARE benefits, for my employer being even more supportive after that time. Sometimes you still find people who just, they don't understand. They don't understand what you're going through and making these decisions, and they think that it's easy, and it's not, or that you're, they also don't understand the bond. And one thing, my father, he stood in and just said, leave her alone, leave her alone. She is doing what she needs to do to serve her country as best as she sees it, and she's doing something honorable. And you need to understand that. And it makes me think back to when I was 12 years old. We lived in a community in Chicago that was, it was basically an all-white community, except for this one black family, and that was my family. And we lived like that for years. And I was so proud when I was able to my mom got me a flag. We moved into this community that didn't really want us there, but she bought me a flag and let me put out a flag in front of our home. And when I told her that, like years later, how proud I was that we could put out a flag too, and show that we belong to America. We were part of the great fabric. She's like, I don't even remember that. And my siblings were like, so what? You had a flag, but it meant so much more to me then than it meant to the rest of the family. It was just like, you want a flag? Get a flag. But it was just such a proud moment, and I took that with me. Or to this day, like if you come by my home on Memorial Day or Veterans Day or some 4th of July, the whole lawn and sidewalk is lined with little flags, and everybody knows that there's somebody here who really loves their country, and that would be me. That would be me, because, like I said, I serve for more than just myself. It's for all the others who can't do what I did or what I would do. As I did, was everything all great? No, I suffered with military sexual trauma, which is never pleasant. A lot of harassment for the way you look, And I just said the only way I could really combat that is to always stay professional and never let someone else's actions stop me from going where I wanted to go, because I knew things were better. Sometimes I didn't say things, and another said, well, you should have turned this person in. I said, but they're not stopping me from getting ahead. I can move on, move away from that situation. And they said, but other people can't, and you didn't speak up for other people. So it took a long time before I would admit anything had ever happened. I wouldn't do it, because one, it's embarrassing, and I'm like, it's just another knock for females to keep you back. And often, as I progressed and moved through the military, being maybe one of the few minorities that might be, and I often served on a general staff, being one of the only minorities and few females that might be there. Sometimes you're the only one and you represent that group. I just felt I needed to be there to be a voice for other people, and to have that say. And sometimes people don't think that officers, especially senior ranking officers, as a colonel, that you'd be so affected by other things that happen, even though you might not have been the person out on the ground who was going door to door in the Middle East. That might not have been your role, but you may have planned that mission. You sent your soldiers out, and all you want to do is bring everybody back home safely. And when you can't do that, to think that it doesn't bother you. And just in talking with some soldiers, they're like, we never thought the officers were thinking that way, because we may not have been the ones, because as you rise and rank, you're not necessarily out in the vehicles, out on the grounds. I said, but yeah, when you know that you were the person who sent them in that direction, could you have done something differently? It makes you stop and think, or is this mission worth it? Have we taken every safety risk into account? Do we need to go here? Do we need to send somebody there? Because, and I knew I couldn't make a promise to families and say, I'm going to bring your son or daughter back home. You can't do that. But in your heart of hearts, that's what you want to do. You want to see everybody come back. You want to see everybody make it, because everybody makes a difference. And my goal for my soldiers was always that just do your job the best you can, because sometimes people will say, well, I'm insignificant. I'm a private or private first class, or just a specialist, or just a sergeant E5. And I'm like, no, you make the difference, because I might have more rank in there, but there are more of you who actually execute, and you do the job. I might make the plan, but you do the job. And without you being here, we can't do it. We're not going to win a war. We're not going to win a battle. We do nothing if we don't take care of the lowest soldier, and to let them know their worth, and really show appreciation for the jobs that they do. And that's all the government has ever asked, is that you do your job and do it the best that you can, and we will take care of you. And that's all I ever really wanted to. I enjoyed the job. I was a human resource officer for many of the years, but the majority of the time I spent in public affairs, which gave me opportunities to go all around the world as a reserve soldier, also as a soldier on active duty. Got to see so much, and the public affairs world is the best because you work with all branches of service, so we work in joint. And so often when you're talking about people and say, well, they were a Marine captain, oh, well, yeah, sure, I served with them as well, because we go different places, and you are part of a joint staff, and you have people working under you, over you, who could be from another service. You have to learn the different services and all that they have to offer and give. But it is most rewarding, the most rewarding thing I think I've gotten out of the military is the camaraderie and the friendship that is felt. That is, bar none, the highlight. When I think back over those 32 years, it is really going to be the people that I met. We're still in touch. I've been retired now for 2 years, and I still hear from my different soldiers by use of social media. That's been a great way to stay in touch with different people. Text messages, emails, even phone calls and visits from different people. Since leaving service, and especially from this past Memorial Day when my son passed away, and thinking about family support, if you think that families are not affected by military life, then you're wrong, because they are. My son Kyle's father really suffered from PTSD, and he really didn't take advantage of all the services that they had out there, and it was a lot of pressure put on my son. When he was in high school, we had him go to a military boarding school while I was deployed and not physically in the home, just to make things a little easier on him. But it was hard, and hard struggles with dealing with acceptance and love, or trying to get that love from his father, that it was very difficult for his father to give, from being asked not to stay in the home anymore and having to move around. Then I had him to come and stay with me in Orlando, but suicide is real, and so I said from that time forward, I knew of other soldiers that had worked with different organizations that provide help, but my plea is for people to not wait till it's too late, even for your family members, because suicide is real. So I started working with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention as a platform, because I don't want any other mothers or anyone to really have to go through that, to be the one left behind, when maybe there's if we could get them the help that they need, and people just go. I work with different organizations, and I'd encourage all veterans to definitely get involved with other organizations. Operation Give Back, they're great. The Wounded Warrior Project, it's wonderful. Heroes, it's the McCormick Research Institute that has the horse therapy. That's been good. On Course for golf, they're there for us. And just so many organizations. And there's so many people out there to help, and just have to go ahead and accept the help that's available. There's lots of groups to talk with, and I was thinking of my Fairways for Warriors with golf, and to make such a difference. After I got out, I did attend the Golf Academy of America and got a associate's degree. So I had a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. Then I went backwards and I got an associate's degree, but in golf management. And that's been really good. And I really didn't have a golf background at all. It was just something I enjoyed, but I really didn't know much about it. But I knew it was a great way of networking and for people to be more involved. So after I finished that, I was lucky enough this past May, or I guess maybe it was April, that I got to be a part of the Veterans Entrepreneur Program out of the University of Florida. And they help veterans to start their own businesses, because they said the success rate for veterans is pretty good because they're more disciplined people and will go through the process. And so right now I'm in the mentor phase of it, and I have developing, it's still in the process, but it is Go For It Golf with FORE spelled FORE. And then I have the 411, which is FORE, and then the number is 11, which I'm going to do a social media type. I'll be an infopreneur dealing with information, and I'm going to have on this website and using social media a spot for new golfers, because there's a lot of information out there for people who are already aware, but not so much if you're new. I'm going to review different golf courses around the Orlando area, which we have many, and tell you which ones are going to be really good for the golfers, and just put things in regular everyday language with little short clips and quick, whimsical blog type information that people can learn where they can go. Because I was thinking in basketball and football, they have a lot of that type of information where they're just there to entertain you. But in golf, everybody wants you to try to learn golf. Well, I just want people to be able to enjoy the fun side of golf and to get out there and learn how to play and enjoy it. You don't have to know every rule out there to go out and have a good time. And there's certain courses that are more friendly towards new golfers. And so and that's going to be the thing that I want to do, or how I'm going to give back, is making it easy for people to enjoy the game of golf, whether you have no experience at all. Those are my favorite ones, to give you a little something for when I think about ladies whose husbands always go away for 5 or 6 hours on the weekend. Well, if I give you just enough information, you can know what they're talking about, and you can get out there with them too, or get on the course. And then those young millennials who don't know how to play, it's just too many great deals out there done on a golf course, so that they won't be afraid. As long as you know how to hit it off the tee, then you're going to be in good shape. Because I thought all these guys out there could play so well, and I'm like, they don't play much better than I do. You know, I don't hit it far, but I do keep it in the fairway versus those who lose all the balls out there. So between that and working for suicide prevention and mental illness, those are going to be things that I'm going to do after my now that I'm done with the military. You're not ever really done. Like I said, I belong to many veterans organizations, and that's really the key for people, is to get involved. So to know that you're not alone. The military, we're out there as a family, and we have a camaraderie and a bond like no other. A lot of people try to imitate the things that we have, and it's just naturally when you struggle together with people, and you eat, you sleep, you do everything with the same group of people, and they understand your struggle and the things that you go through and all the highs and the lows. I ended up with many disabilities from deploying and being out there with all the physicalness. It's taking a toll. But people ask, would you do it again? I'm like, I do it again. I do it again because it was so worth it, and it's something more than just myself. It's more than just me, Paula. No, it is so much bigger. I'm just thinking that people that I have met and the opportunities that I've had are just, you can't count them. So you have a few setbacks with your physical body, and I tell everyone, the care at the VA is tops, bar none. The paperwork and the bureaucracy, that could get better, but the care, that's going to be 100%. So I'd encourage everybody to seek that professional help that's out there, and don't be afraid to ask for help or think that you always have to be on and you have to be so strong and you never take any help. Well, help is there, and to take it. And that's a hard one that I had to learn myself, is to actually take the help that's out there and available, and also continue to give back to other people. And so that's what I've done as well, to look out for those families and give them support, and the other veterans as they in their careers, and know that they have that post-career, as always in the Army now is a saying that you're a soldier for life. You're not just in for the moment or for those few years. Even when you get out, you're still a soldier for life, and there's a lot of opportunities for you.